There's no question that divorce has been the most painful experience of my life in going through it. So I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share that. And I prepared some slides that I'd like to utilize in kind of going through this to share a few quotes, some thoughts as we do it. And let's see. Yep, there they are. So I wanted to start out just by sharing a little bit of my story because I think it helps. I'm going to just a lot of times I like to share like stories and things that kind of sugarcoat things and just build up the excitement getting into some of these talks. But with this, there's just if people or those that are watching this, I know are looking for real help, real solutions, some guidance, some direction. This is a very, very heavy topic and one that we don't, I think, address quite enough in the church. So I'm just going to jump right in and give you everything that I possibly can in my time in hopes that some of that will be of help to those that are looking for some answers on how to navigate such a difficult experience as this. My background in it is that I was married for 12 years, and just as some marriages tend to do, it just gravitated to a very unhealthy level. There was a lot of codependency that was developed over the course of that time, a lot of enabling that went on, and just a very unhealthy relationship for both people involved. My ex-wife is a wonderful person, and I've been able to sense to see my part in it, and I know she has been very reflective of hers as well. But it just got to a point where it just was too painful to continue to move on. Sometimes the pain of the solution needs to become greater than the pain of the problem in order for there to be some change. And we tried everything; it just wasn't getting better. And so for me, divorce was the only option that I could see in moving forward. However, that was such a difficult choice to make because especially growing up in the church, that was the last thing I ever wanted to do. That's not any part of the blueprint of my life that I had even thought about going in. And to make matters even a little bit more complicated, I was teaching seminary at the time. I taught for 10 years. And at the time, the policy was that if you were to get divorced, you could no longer teach. And I understood all the reasons for that. But not only did I face potentially my family and the hopes and dreams surrounding that all come crashing down, but also the career that I had spent so much time in developing and to come to love so deeply. But it needed to happen. And so went through and that process. And I guess I had no idea that the human heart was capable of hurting so much. I'll say that, only to be deeply hurt even more in watching the hearts break of my children, my two daughters, in expressing to them that their family was coming to an end in the way that they had perceived it. And long story short, from the process, just to kind of summarize everything, I was completely blessed in that I was able to find another job pretty quickly as a medical device sales rep for a company called Stryker. And but I'll tell you, I went from, just to kind of give you an idea of the turmoil that I was going through. I went from literally going to a evening with the general authority as part of my job, listening to Elder Holland speak, to being on a booze cruise in the middle of Lake Tahoe with my sales team, with everybody half drunk, and there I am sitting with a bag of Cheetos and a Dr. Pepper in my hand. And that moment, looking around, just thinking to myself, what is happening to my life? Why am I here? What is going on? And those questions just continue to resonate throughout the process. And I needed to understand some things. And I've gone through so much to try to learn and understand the process, how to navigate it, what helped me and those things that kind of held me back. And that's what I kind of want to share with you tonight, is I've been able to come out on the other side of that, and enough time has passed where I've been able to heal a lot, and I'm excited about the prospects of my future, where there was a period of time where I absolutely didn't want anything to do with the future in my life. One of the questions that I'm asked quite a bit as a mentor and a coach as well, is when these kind of relationships gravitate towards divorce, is just this question: should I get a divorce? And this is kind of where I wanted to start tonight. It's not an easy question to answer. And I've done a lot of research trying to find guidance and direction on how to best answer that. And really comes down to it's a very personal decision that needs to be made. There's not a ton of guidance out there. I love to look at the general authorities and the prophets and apostles for guidance, and they cover just every topic. There's always something out there that you can find. There isn't a ton on divorce. Elder Oaks gave an incredible talk titled Divorce that I would definitely point you to, where he addresses a lot of things in it. But one quote that I really found myself gravitating towards was from President Faust back in April 2007, when he said, and he was speaking about enriching marriage, but he also addressed divorce a little bit. He said, divorce can be justified only in the rarest of circumstances. In my opinion, and this is in his opinion, but it's a good opinion, right? Just cause for divorce should be nothing less serious than a prolonged and apparently irredeemable relationship that destroys a person's dignity as a human being. As Jason talked so much about, we're here to grow and develop individually. And for some reason, some relationships actually hinder that growth. And I think that's what President Faust is alluding to, is that when in a relationship, that relationship you begin to lose yourself. There begins to be a level of a degradation for you as just a person, where you begin to have stripped away everything that's good about you, your identity. You just lose all of that. Then that's not a part of God's plan. And at that point, if you feel inclined to end the marriage, there needs to be a way to end it. And as Elder Oak said, when a marriage is dead and beyond the hope of resuscitation, it needs to have a means to end it. And that would be divorce. But one of the things that I like to point out to people, make sure they understand, is that it is your decision, and it's only your decision. You'll have a tendency to have other people want to give you their opinions on what you should do. Family, friends, almost everybody may want to get involved in some of that decision-making process. But at the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with it. You're the one that will experience it, and it needs to be your decision and yours only. There's great counsel in Doctrine and Covenants 8 through 9 about how to make decisions by studying out in your mind and then asking the Lord if it's right. And if it is, he'll help you to feel that it is. If it's not, there'll be no such feeling, just a stupor of thought, a real heavy reluctancy is how I like to describe it. But one of the things I've learned is that sometimes the answer won't come until after a decision is made. And in fact, it's alluded in that first statement. You must study it out in your mind and then ask me if it be right. The Lord is alluding in between that process of studying and asking, you've made a decision. And for a decision like this, I remember I just wanted to be told what to do. I wanted the Lord to come down and tell me. I wanted a sign. I wanted an angel. I wanted something, because this wasn't what I wanted to ever experience. And especially the culture of the church, it almost felt wrong. And so I just struggled with that internally so much. But the peace didn't come until after the decision was made. And for me, the decision wasn't made in word, it was, or in thought, it was made in action. I had to start moving forward in order for that revelation to come, because that's how the decision ended up being best made in my mind and heart. Sometimes you got to step into the river of Jordan, right, before it parts. The Lord wants us to act. And on the flip side, Elder Scott teaches that the Lord will never let us go too far without warning us if we're going in the wrong direction. The important thing is that we need to begin to take those steps, especially if you're struggling knowing what to do. The other principle that I love relating to people is that it's important to always not make this decision in a rush or rashly. I love phrases in the scripture like "after all we could do." The Lord is a great example of that in his long suffering for us. What more could I have done for the trees of my vineyard? Mine arm is lengthened out all the day. How oft would I have gathered you? This is a decision that you don't want to have any regrets about. And so I think far too many rush to divorce as a quick solution to their problems, when in reality it's really quite the opposite. I really believe that in order to feel at peace with a decision like this, you really need to get to a place where you're like, I've done everything that I can, and it's still not getting any better. And that puts you in a positive place to make a decision like that. I wanted to give you two kind of thoughts. One, some of the best practical advice for those that are considering going through divorce or going through it now, will go through it in the future, and then some spiritual related advice, because both were super helpful for me in learning to navigate divorce. I was told on many occasions that the grass isn't greener on the other side, and there's a lot of truth to that. Being single, and I would imagine married, as we heard Jason talk about, step family presents its own inherent challenges. Life just doesn't magically get better because you get out of one difficult situation. There continues to be challenges and struggles. And so try to avoid that mentality that, yeah, well, if I get divorced, everything's going to just work out and be great. There's a challenge on both sides. The grass isn't just greener perfectly on the other side. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Divorce takes a while to work itself out legally, but also emotionally. And you got to be prepared for the long haul. It will not be over quickly. I had a friend that had gone through divorce. One of my big concerns was what it would do to my children. And he told me something that was very profound at the time. He said, divorce will scar your kids. And I thought, well, great. That's not what I wanted to hear. But then he said, but it can be a scar that helps more than hurts. And I've watched my girls over the years grow up a little bit quicker than some of their friends have, but I have seen how it has actually, I think because a lot of the choices that I have made and the way that I've presented myself to them and to others has helped them to learn quite a bit. They have come to not take things for granted quite so much. They say thank you for just about everything. They appreciate things a little bit more. They live in the present a little bit easier and worry a little bit less about the future. It was hard, no question, but I've seen how it has been something that has helped them navigate their own life more than it has hurt them. Also understand that hurt people can hurt other people, and that's often what we do. Not only will you be going through a lot of pain, but all those that are involved will be going through pain. There will be things that will be said that are hurtful, things that are done, but we all do things that we don't normally do when we're in pain. And that helped me to be a little bit more patient with those that were saying things and maybe sending some of those text messages, like Jason said, to understand that they're coming from a place of pain and it's human nature to lash out when we're hurting as well. Self-care is absolutely crucial during this time. I also came to recognize divorce isn't just the death. A lot of times you'll hear people talk about that you're mourning the loss of, and you do, there is absolutely a grieving period, but it was helpful for me to shift my thinking to see it as a bit of a disability. It's not something that just goes away. It's something that you will learn to live with throughout the rest of your life and be reminded of on multiple occasions and have interactions all throughout your life. But it's not something that can and will hold you back. It's something that can help you to move forward, but it is something that you'll have to learn to live with. And I did have somebody saying, I was appreciative of that, that there will be days where all you need to do is breathe. That's it. That's your number one job. It's just to get through the day, just breathe. There were many days where I just laid in bed and that was all I could do. And that was enough. As far as some of the spiritual advice, it's helpful, I think, to recognize that you're not alone in going through this kind of stuff, and you'll have people that will reach out to you that understand how you feel, and it's important to connect with them because nobody else will really understand or be able to convey in words things that can help as you go through it. But even in the church, more than half are single. Christ was raised by a step parent and a single mother. So I know that he has a special place in his heart for those that go through the pains of divorce and find themselves alone. The victim mentality is one that I work with a lot. It will absolutely sap your spiritual strength. And as Jason so beautifully taught us, it's so important to work for the ability to see and accept your part in the divorce and not point the fingers at the other person. It does absolutely no good for your personal growth and development. The only thing you can control is you and what you did potentially that to your part in that, and then to develop the capacity and ability to forgive. We see in the scriptures warnings of what happens with the victim mentality, especially in the Lamanites. There's some great verses in Mosiah that talked about how it just started by them feeling that they were wronged. And that's where everybody starts in divorce, is we feel that we've been wronged. Something's been done to us. And if we continue on that path, that feeling of being wronged leads to feelings of wrath, of anger. And that anger leads to hatred. And then what did the Lamanites do? They taught their children to hate as well. And it gets perpetuated. And people are living that cycle over and over and over today. And I've just seen it so much. So whatever you can do to interrupt that pattern and to develop the ability to love instead of hate and to accept your part in it instead of pointing the fingers of others will be huge. Time is important. It heals and it's an active component of the atonement. Understand that part of the Lord's ability to help and heal you will involve time. and that's okay. The other thought that I love is I found myself and others have in a spot of ground that we never wanted to be planted in. Boy, there's some great verses in Jacob 5 where the Lord teaches that some of the trees that brought forth the best fruit in the parable of the vineyard, the Lord of the vineyard, he purposefully planted in some of the poorest spots of ground. And because of his ability to nurture and to love and to care for those trees, and probably because of the adversity and the struggle that came from being planted in that particular spot of ground, those trees brought forth better fruit than those that had been planted in some of the best spots of ground. And that was always a helpful and comforting thought in finding myself in any place in life that I didn't want to be. Um, you're going to feel this way as well. This is very common. God has broke his promises. Here I was, a seminary teacher, doing everything that I could to help bless the lives of young people, attending church as best as I could, trying to be the best father and husband that I could. And my whole world fell apart. It was so easy to slip into this thinking that God doesn't care. He's not there. He's broke his promises. Why should I keep trying? Please understand that none of us will go through life having it go exactly how we want or think it should. None of us will. But it's okay to be angry. It's normal to be angry. Even church and the temple for a time may change for you. Instead of becoming or being a place of peace and comfort, there's a good chance it will become a place of pain, a reminder of what you did no longer have or what's been broken. And you need to be ready. Your faith will be tested in ways that you haven't yet experienced. And you need to be strong. Satan will find every opportunity to diminish your faith, especially in going through divorce. But also understand that it's okay to feel these things. That would be one of my pleads with you, is to understand it's okay to feel these things and to struggle a bit, because divorce is absolutely traumatic. And you feel that and you experience it. All of us have that have gone through it. Couple quick principles just to further help navigate divorce if that ends up being what you experience. As alluded to, understand life is a test. It just is, and there's no way to escape that. That's one of the prerequisites of us coming here. Sometimes it's what we want most that God most wants for us to give him. That's what he may ask for us to place on his altar. For me, it was what I wanted most, which was what I had seen growing up and what I had been working my whole life for, was the ideal family situation. And I didn't want to give that to him for any amount of time. And I fought with that. But as I've learned to, as Jason talked a little bit about as well, learning to let go, that was huge. I really believe, as I teach quite a bit, God has in mind to give us everything. That's his plan. But the irony is that you and I will only be ready for it when we've learned to be enough without it. And as a very wise man once said on Cool Runnings, in the movie Cool Runnings, if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it. So some of these experiences that we're going through may in fact be the Lord's way of testing us to see if we can learn to be enough without it, so that we'll one day be ready for it when he is willing, able to give it to us. As Joseph taught, you'll have all kinds of trials to pass through. It's quite as necessary for you to be tried as it was for Abraham and other men of God. God will fill after you. He'll take hold of you and wrench your heartstrings. And if you cannot stand it, you will not be fit for an inheritance of the celestial kingdom of God. Make no mistake about it. Divorce will wrench your very heartstrings. I can attest to that personally, as I think everybody on here can as well. And that's a part of that testing experience. President Packer said some things that ought to be put in order are not put in order because we cannot control them. People always have agency, and the Lord allows for that. So those things that we cannot solve, we must survive. One of the things that was helpful for me in my recovery, if you want to call it that, in going through divorce, was that to shift my focus on what church was. Instead, again, of being a place of peace and support, for me, I had to shift into seeing it as a rehabilitation center. I had to learn how to kind of walk again, how to live again in this broken life of mine, and that involved pain. And I have seen and known far too many that have quit because of the pain. They've not only divorced themselves from their spouse, but they've divorced themselves from God and from the church. And that's, you can't do that. It's only through the pain. The only way to heal the pain that you've gone through is to go through the pain to heal. but at your own time, in your own pace, in your own way. Yeah, there are a number of days where I didn't want to sit there in church alone and watch families and listen to, songs about families. But I knew that the only way to get to the other side where I could be healthy and strong again was to go through the pain. And I'm so, so grateful that I have. But again, be patient with yourself, and you'll learn to go to church and participate in all those things, not for anybody else, not because it's expected of you, not because it's what you grew up doing, but you'll learn to go through the pain for you. And that is the best place that you could get to when it comes to loving and serving the Lord. You'll remove every other potential reason for it. Boy, I had a lot of individuals that have worried about their kids and what divorce will do to them, especially when they have a spouse that may go the opposite direction, and they're going to be experiencing some, we'll call it dark things with that person. And how, what's it going to do to my kids? I've learned to trust in the principle of contrast. Driving around the valley here in Salt Lake, if you live here locally, I would encourage you to watch for the temples at night and notice how much easier it is to see them when they're lit up against the dark than it is during the day. And the reason for that is because I've learned that I can't control what my children experience when they're with the other person. I can't control what they experience with any really other person at times, other than just trying to monitor it as best as I can and keep them safe as I can. But what I can control is the light that I provide for them in my home from my life, and trust that they'll be able to see the difference. And I'm telling you, they can. They are more observant than you think. And although they may need to go through some experiences on their own, one day they will see that the light that is provided for them in their home and the love that is provided for you will shine out against any particular darkness that they might be experiencing anywhere in life, let alone potentially when they go and spend time with another spouse that isn't in a good place. That principle of contrast can be a very powerful thing. My father, as an example, learned how to be a father by not having one. He was able to go through that process and to see what he didn't want to be. And sometimes that's how contrast works as well. It's a lot there, but just, I guess, to wrap things up, just trust in the end that it will all work out. And when you go through divorce, your perspective changes, and it's a good perspective change. No longer are you just focused on mortality, but you start to look a little bit further past mortality, because honestly, you can't see at the time how the pieces might come back together. And there's always the possibility they might not fully come back together till in the next life. But that's okay. That's a wonderful perspective to have, because that's the right perspective. As Elder Holland taught, some blessings come soon, some come late, and some don't come till heaven. But for those that embrace the gospel of Jesus Christ, they come. And what kind of blessings are they? Better than you and I could possibly imagine. Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man those things which God has prepared for those that love him. It'll be worth it. It's one of my favorite quotes here from President Eyring that fits so well into some of the worries that we have in going through divorce. He said, "A prophet of God once offered me counsel that gives me peace. I was worried that the choices of others might make it impossible for our family to be together forever." He said, "You're worrying about the wrong problem. You just live worthy of the celestial kingdom, and the family arrangements will be more wonderful than you can imagine." I've held on to that all throughout my divorce. The answer to divorce, in my opinion, is very simple. But yet again, agency is involved, so it's not always that simple. This is one of the best quotes from Elder Holland about how to develop love in a relationship, in any relationship. He said, "Do you want compatibility, safety, and security in dating and romance, in married life and eternity? Then be a true disciple of Jesus. Be a genuine, committed, word and deed Latter day Saint. Believe that your faith has everything to do with your romance, because it does. You separate dating from discipleship at your peril. Jesus Christ, the light of the world, is the only lamp by which you can successfully see the path of love and happiness." Behind that quote, I have a diagram that I often share, just as it relates to relationships. It's the triangle. God's at the top, you and I are on one end, and the other person, whether it be somebody we're dating or a spouse or even a child, anyone can fit in that diagram. And the reality is, when two people draw closer to the Lord, they draw closer to each other. Again, we can't always control the direction that one person goes, and nor should we, but we can always control the direction that we go. And I know that as we move closer to God, we will move closer to those that we love as they move closer to God as well. A lot of divorces can be solved if people would just adopt that simple rule and principle and recognize that their relationship with God has everything to do with their relationship with each other. I'm a better husband. I will be a better husband one day, a better father, a better friend, just a better person as I draw closer to God. So I hope that some of that has been helpful. Again, there is so much there, and I want those that are watching to know that I understand what you're going through in considering it, in going through it. Those that will go through it one day, just know that there is light on the other side. And although it takes time, it's a struggle. You can come out of divorce stronger, better, with a better perspective, and in a lot of ways free of fear, which which is something that I absolutely love in the way that my life is right now. The pain that I went through with all that and the life altering experience it was has really developed a mindset in me that I don't fear much else that comes at me. And I love that. I love that the Lord has shaped me in such a way that I'm more filled with faith than I've ever been, and hopeful of the future and of things becoming being made right one day, whether it's in this life or the next. As long as I'm true to my covenants, I know that they will be, and I'm grateful for that. And I leave that with the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.